Yeah, the TryPod app, shit, years in the making. They're raising the stakes straight, bringing home the bacon. It's free.
Yeah, g'day everyone, and welcome back to the TryPod live show with Winnie and Clarkey. New show for the postseason. Same incredible co-host, of course. I'm not referring to myself. I'm referring to the founder of TryPod, Jacob Wynn. Nice to see you, mate. What is doing?
Yeah, back by popular demand, if people can believe it or not. People asked us to do a bit of a preview of the Pacific Championships, and the fact is we're going to be watching it closely. We're going to be punting on it, and I just love your company, mate. So many great reasons to make this happen. We are going to commit to 4-week series, this time every week for the next 4 weeks, and 15 to 20-minute max shows, just really keeping an eye on the big game of the weekend, and then maybe a side tip or a quick word on the bowl games as well. I've got a best bet tonight, but I'll share that after we talk Australia-Tonga. You've got an SGM. I've got a mixed matchup to come as well. And I thought we would start each week with just our story of the week, favourite headline or story that's dropped in the world of rugby league, mate.
Oh, I don't want to steal your thunder. I know what you're going to say, so I'll let you go first and I'll tail on the end of it because it really is the only big story.
Well, you could have gone a few directions. I just say really briefly, Nathan Cleary went over to the UK, watched the Super League final, and congratulated Wigan. Although Penrith have pulled out of the World Club Challenge next year and they have to go to Vegas pre-season, they don't want to extend that any further. And Cleary said, love to play him at Magic Round. I know it's a logistical challenge, but how awesome of a spectacle would that be? I'm all for it. If Penrith wants to give up one of their 3 buys and you get 9 games at Magic Round and you get the Super League champions and it is their turn to travel here, I think, let's make it happen. It makes too much sense to me.
And I absolutely agree. I didn't think Magic Round could get any better personally, but this would genuinely be the crown jewel of what is already rugby league's crown jewel event. This would be absolutely awesome, knowing we have essentially a grand final of proportions not quite as significant as an NRL grand final, but certainly right up there. It would be incredible. As you said, we just need the winning team each year to agree they get one less bye the following year. Maybe that makes the competition a little bit fairer anyway. So I love that. I'll give a different story, but it is of the same nature, mate. It's the Wigan Warriors CEO saying Nathan Cleary would not make their 17. Mate, I don't care if it's the Almost Shearers under 6s. You name the team around the world. Even if it's a squash team, Nathan Cleary is in it, mate. The guy is an absolute freak. But I did love that banter by the CEO. They're obviously trying to bait them into the contest, guys. So what you can expect moving forward from this section here is a brief recap of the following week. But as Winnie did touch on, we'll be quicker, we'll be shorter. We will spend longer on the Pacific Championship game, and then we'll also speak about the Pacific Bowl. So with that information, Winnie, let us get underway, mate. Game 1, Australia v Tonga, Suncorp Stadium this Friday night. Line is set at -16.5 against Australia. Now, just quickly on some team news there. Turbo named at centre despite injury concerns. Dearden and Moses, they make up the new halves, and Matt Burton is the bench utility. For Tonga, Lehigh Hopewadi preferred at fullback. Tolatau Collar left out completely, and a powerful bench that does include Paseka, Tupanua, and Keon Kawala-Matangi, mate. So break this one down for me. How do you see it playing out?
So my first instinct, and we will also be able to preview Samoa, England next weekend as well, which is great. But for this one, my first instinct is you got to play Australia, don't you? It's kind of a great spot for everyone to be really motivated. I think there's pressure on Mal Meninga to keep this job, which is probably a bit of a cushy job because you've got so much depth and so many great players to pick every year. And can we tolerate losing 30-0, which was the last time the Kangaroos played, or losing to Tonga, which is a tier 2 nation technically, last time Australia played Tonga in an official test? I feel like Australia's got to be up for this. So I thought, look, that line opened 14.5. I've seen it moving. It's up as high as 17.5 now. And it's pretty logical, but maybe you just play it. And then I had a closer look at this Tonga squad, and I'm going to put it up on the screen as we talk. But that's as good a Tonga squad as I've ever seen. You've got Tolatau Kola, Siwa Wong, can't make the 17. The forward pack, I think, matches up extremely well against Australia, who doesn't have Payne Haas, doesn't have a few players that have made themselves eligible for Pacific nations. Of course, there's other players who aren't there because of injury, like Cleary, Munster. So I really think that Tonga can compete in this game and make it a beauty on Friday night. And you look at that lineup as well, the bench for Tonga. really doesn't drop off when you got the likes of Tupanua, Koloamatangi, Paseka. There's so much power there. Australia, of course, they're strong across the board, as they always are. 6 debuting for the Kangaroos. One thing that sticks out to me is, why is Turbo playing? He was held together by Scotch tape in the NRL finals. I mean, it's the last thing that Manly needs is Turbo running around in these off-season test matches. But if Turbo is fit, that is the strength of the Aussies, that back five, and Turbo and Hammer in the centres. And then I'm looking at your wingers of Coates and Lomax. That's a big problem, especially for whichever one Sione Katoa has to match up with in the air. New combinations for the Aussies, fairly different look side than the one that won the World Cup. Means it could take a little bit to get into their groove. Maybe Australia won't play their very best in the opening match. So I got to tell you, mate, I think Tonga makes an absolute game of this. Do you agree?
I think it's going to be a closer first half, but I do think class will prevail. I want to quickly touch on Tom Trbojevic real quick, mate. What that actually does to this Australia side is it means Matt Burton becomes the 14 because they need that utility that can play in the backs. And that could play into what you're saying here with this powerful Tonga forward pack, because it means Harry Grant will need to go the full 80 hooker, whereas traditionally in rep games, more so for the Maroons, we would see him rotate with Ben Hunt throughout the game. So that does lean into your pick there of Tonga as well. I'll start with Australia. Obvious pick to win this tournament. There's no doubt about that. The tournament owners in the Australian Rugby League Commission own the Australian Kangaroos. So there's no doubt. And there is extra motivation given the failure they had last year in suffering their largest ever defeat to the New Zealand Kiwis. Now, on paper, I will say they are stronger than Tonga in every single area. And realistically, Tonga's strength of their forward pack, I don't think that'll be enough for them to win this game alone. I know it was in 2019, but I think it'll be a little bit different this time around. You know, we're 5 years down the track. Now, they do have some firepower in their spine between Lehigh Hopewadi and Isaiah Katoa, but I suspect this Australian side, who, although there are some debutants, they are experienced at all levels, such as Origin, Finals, etc. So I think they will have a plan to shut down their two young guns in the spine there. And that brings me to my question for this game. Where does Tonga go to for their plan B? I don't see a plan B in this side. I don't think they can win straight through their forward pack. And if Katoa and Hopewadi are controlled, I don't see another obvious plan B. Whereas when you look at this Australian side, I see enough versatility throughout it that they can pivot. They can adapt as required depending on how this contest goes. So I expect a close first half winning. But I do think as this contest goes on, class will prevail. This spine will build some cohesion together, most notably the halves of Dearden and Moses. And I do see the Kangaroos coming out quite comfortably on top, mate. I can tell you how I was going to play this one as a bet, and then we'll pass it over to your official best bet for this game.
Go for it, mate.
I was going to play this one as a Tonga plus 8.5 first half into Australia minus 17.5 second half. That was $6.25.
Minus 17.5 full game?
No, they had to win that in the second half. So I just thought there's a little bit too much variance there. Although I do see the game playing out that way, they are, particularly the second half, that is a significant margin. And it only paid around $6.25. So I have found another way that I can play this one, and I'll share that momentarily right after we hear your best bet for this game, mate.
I'll double check your one. I feel like if Tonga covered the first half line, we'll double check anyway. But I kind of agree with you in terms of how it'll play out. So getting back to the fact that this Tonga side is absolute, not just NRL caliber players, but quality NRL players throughout. If you're going to pick the weaknesses of Tonga, you're going to look at a starting 6, starting 9 are probably not players that would start for NRL teams, but they're still experienced in Lolo Hea, Havili, and Sonny Luke will play some rake off the bench. The difference is going to be a class of the Australian outside backs and Moses' kicking game that I also think can wear Tonga out. Not to mention Tonga's got such a powerful, massive pack. Whether they can go the full 80 with Australia is the question mark. But if I have to play a margin, I'm going to go Australia 1-12. Keep in mind you lose if it's a draw. I don't think we're getting extra time. But Australia 1-12 at 370 on toppy, I reckon is pretty juicy if you reckon Tonga makes a good game of this. My best bet, along the lines of a closer first half, I'm going to play Australia's team total under 16.5 points in the first half, and that's $1.82 on Sportsbet. So Australia could score 3 tries, and if they're not all converted, we could still win that. I think I'm generally trending towards seeing this as a lower scoring game and on the tighter side, especially early. So I reckon that's a great team total and getting through a key number there.
I agree, mate, because you look at this Tonga forward pack, they will match it with the Kangaroos early, in my opinion. And when we go to the Kangaroo spine, this would be the first ever game that Edwards, Dearden, Moses, and Grant have played together. So it will take time to build up some cohesion. And I do like that. Where I went to for my bet on this game, mate, the great Ron Coote. Now, he was named an immortal this year. He once scored 6 tries in a row in consecutive games for the Australian Kangaroos. Cameron Murray has currently scored in his last 6 consecutive games he's played for the Australian Kangaroos. So if he scores this game, Winnie, he stands alone as the only Australian Kangaroos forward of all time to score in 7 consecutive games. And I think that's a really cool storyline. So when you combine Australia 13 plus with Cameron Murray to score at any time, that comes out at $5.50 on Toppy. And I just think there's less risk playing my bet this way. You know, it's paced slightly less than what I said for my initial way I was looking at it, but it takes out that requirement of needing variations from both halves. We've got Murray on an edge, so I think he's more likely to play larger minutes. And if he does rotate to a middle row, Winnie, well, he scored his last 6 in a row there, so no harm there for me. I don't think it's as safe as picking a winger and saying Australia 13 plus. Coates would be my pick. He would be the one on Sione Katoa, as you said, and we know he's fantastic under the high ball. But I just think it'd be really cool to witness history for the Australian Kangaroos that have been around since the 1910s with Cameron Murray here. It'd be cool to have some coin on it, mate, and look back 20 years from now and say, yeah, I bet on him to score in that game. So that's my best bet for this one. Australia 13 plus into Cameron Murray, anytime try scorer. Your thoughts, please.
And no try more important than Cam Murray's try in the World Cup semi-final. I can still remember it. Australia was behind against the Kiwis with just like 10 or 15 minutes to go. The Kiwis were under the pump. Brandon Smith, the cheese, dropped on his haunches. He was so tired, and Australia had a tap, and it was obvious that Cheese was really blowing. So they tapped it, passed it to Cam Murray, ran straight at Brandon Smith, burrowed past him, scores the winning try. Australia only wins that game by 2 or 4 points. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even made the World Cup final to be able to win it. So you can't knock the ability of Cam Murray. By the way, I checked your same-game multi. It was only the full game handicap.
Okay.
So, like, Australia could be up 8 at halftime, and then to cover 16 and a half, just win the second half by 10. So it was a little more achievable, and it's still a good option for people at 650 if they like that. But we'll track how Clarkie's same gamers go. And I have got a mixed matchup that's going to tie into Fiji PNG. So we have a word on that one?
Yeah, mate, let's talk about that one there. So game 2 is Fiji v Papua New Guinea. It's in Suva, Fiji this Saturday night, and the line is set at -5.5 against Fiji Bharti. Now, the NRL players that are in their squad is Sunia Taruva, Mike Acevo, Michael Jennings, Semi Valame, Kurt Donahue, Tui Kamakamitha, Viliami Kikau, Tane Milne, and Caleb Navale. And for Papua New Guinea, they've only got Jacob Arlick-Winky and Jack DeBell in there, mate. But for this one, do you want me to give my analysis before we hear your same game, your mixed matchup, brother? I'll keep my analysis nice, short, and simple for this one, mate. Fiji have more NRL players. They are at home, and they are the stronger side on paper. But I've never seen a Papua New Guinea side not play with passion. You can never write them off. There is too much love for the game. There is too much support back home. And I do think this will be a tight contest. Now, while some of these Papua New Guinea players aren't NRL, there's some Super League players in there, some players in the Tier 2 competition in UK, and they have been together for several years now, particularly around that spine, excluding Alex Johnston, who is injured and would usually be at fullback. Where for Fiji, I think there could be some teething issues, especially with a largely unrecognised spine between their 1, 6 and 7. None of those players are in their regular positions, and they're without Brandon Wakeham, who's been there for many years as their halfback. Therefore, my play for this game, Winnie, give me either side by 10 or less. That pays around $1.90 there. So I think both sides will be up for it, mate. I don't foresee a blowout. How do you see this one with your mixed matchup?
Yeah, I also reckon it should be a good game. I was so impressed by PNG against the Aussie PMs 13 last weekend, and PNG scored 20 points in that game against a very talented Aussie side. And in fact, it's not really the same PNG. Only about 4 or 5 of the players that lined up on Sunday are backing up on Saturday. So it's actually now the top line players coming in for PNG, but are still getting a sense that they're organised and that they can put on points. And then Fiji, that is their style, that they'll play with flair. And the strength of the Fiji inside is an all NRL back 5 So my lean in this game is overs. And I'm going to give you a mixed matchup every week, guys. I'm going to always tie in the big game of the weekend. So whether it be the Kangaroos game or Tonga, New Zealand, the week the Aussies are off. And then we'll tie it into the bowl game. Maybe we'll tie it into Samoa, England next week. Maybe something wild like an NBA, NFL market. We'll have some fun with it. But this week, it's going to be Fiji, PNG to be a higher scoring game than Australia, Tonga. I really feel like Tonga has a great squad that can give Australia a lot to handle, and Australia will take the game very seriously, whereas Fiji and PNG just maybe a little bit more of entertaining and open affair. The totals suggest that Australia Tonga has got a total a couple of points higher, but that's why we do get $2.50 for this mixed matchup, and you can have up to 150 on that on Toppy if you need an account. The code is TP Live.
Mate, that's a great shout, and a huge shout out to Toppy for coming on board and partnering with us for our Pacific Championship preview. Absolutely appreciate your guys' company. We promised it'd be a quicker show, and it was. So with that, I will say thank you very much, and I will see you next week. And over to you, Winnie, for the final word.
Thanks for joining us, guys. So same time next week. We did an NBA season preview show yesterday. If you're interested in that, it's on the TryPod channel everywhere. Heaps of futures tips, including some specials on Toppy. Have a great week. Lego.